When was photography invented? And why it still feels like magic? It depends on how you define photography, by catching light, fixing an image, or sharing a vision. The official birth of photography is marked in 1839 when Louis Daguerre introduced the Daguerreotype process to the public in France. Daguerreotypes were the first practical way to capture a permanent image, tiny, mirror-like plates of silver-coated copper that reflected every detail with stunning clarity. Unlike earlier experiments, which faded away or took hours to expose, Daguerre's process used iodine fumes and mercury vapor to fix the image in about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on light conditions. Each daguerreotype was a one-of-a-kind object, like a small, personal relic of a moment in time. They couldn't be reproduced, which made them both precious and intimate. Portrait studios sprang up across Europe and America, offering ordinary people a chance to sit for their likeness in a way that was once reserved for the wealthy who could afford painted portraits. Long before photography was invented, scholars were already trying to understand how light and images interact. Arab scientists and philosophers like Al-Hasan, Ibn al-Haytham in the 10th and 11th centuries wrote extensively about the science of optics. Al-Hasan's work on the camera obscura, literally dark chamber, laid the groundwork for how light can project an image through a small hole onto a flat surface. This principle fascinated artists, astronomers, and thinkers for centuries. It was the first step in realizing that light could draw reality. Centuries later, Joseph Nicephore Niépce took this ancient optical principle and asked a groundbreaking question: can we not only project light, but also capture it permanently? Between 1816 and 1822, Niépce began experimenting with light-sensitive materials, trying to fix images projected by a camera obscura onto a permanent surface. Niépce's method was called heliography, which literally means sun drawing. Unlike later photographic processes, heliography didn't involve film or photographic paper. Instead, Niépce used a polished pewter plate coated with a light-sensitive substance called bitumen of Judea, a type of asphalt. The process was simple in concept but painstaking in practice. He placed the coated plate inside a camera obscura and exposed it to sunlight for up to 8 hours. The light hardened the bitumen where it struck the plate, while the shadowed areas remained soft. After washing the plate with a solvent, what remained was the world's first permanent photograph, a direct drawing by the sun itself. It was a process of capturing light by letting time do the work. No instant clicks, no quick snapshots, just hours of waiting. For me, heliography feels almost poetic. It's a reminder that photography, at its core, is about light and patience. Niépce's heliograph wasn't practical for everyday use. It was fragile, low contrast, and required long exposures. But it was the first true photograph that could survive after being taken. Without it, Daguerre's advancements wouldn't have been possible. While Joseph Niépce successfully created the first permanent photograph around 1826, using his heliography process, it is Louis Daguerre's Daguerreotype, announced in 1839, that is recognized as the official invention of photography. Why? The difference comes down to practicality, visibility, and public adoption. Heliography was not practical. The process never reached a stage where it could be shared or commercialized. On the other hand, Daguerre's method, while built upon Niépce's experiments, used silver-coated copper plates and iodine and mercury vapor to dramatically reduce exposure time and produce sharp, detailed images. In 1839, Daguerre publicly revealed the process, with state sponsorship from the French government, marking the moment photography entered public consciousness. It was repeatable and commercial. The daguerreotype was immediately adopted by artists, scientists, and the public. Portrait studios opened within months, and people were lining up to have their photographs taken. For the first time, photography became something you could do, not just dream about. The term photography was coined around that time. The word photography was first used by Sir John Herschel in 1839, the same year the daguerreotype was introduced. It signaled a shift from isolated experiment to full-fledged medium. Of course, the daguerreotype wasn't the end of the story. It was a brilliant beginning, but it had one limitation that couldn't be ignored. Every image was one of a kind. The silver-coated plate itself was the photograph. There was no negative, no backup, no way to make copies. If you wanted to give a portrait to a loved one, you'd have to sit for a whole new exposure. Beautiful, yes. Practical for mass photography? Not quite. That's where William Henry Fox Talbot comes in. In 1841, just 2 years after Daguerre's big reveal, Talbot introduced the calotype process. Unlike the daguerreotype, which created a direct positive image on metal, the calotype produced a paper negative. This negative could then be used to make multiple positive prints, a concept so fundamental today that it's easy to forget how revolutionary it was back then. The calotype's images were softer and less detailed than the razor-sharp daguerreotypes, but it had something Daguerre's process didn't: reproducibility. For the first time, a photograph wasn't tied to a single precious object. You could share it, reprint it, even archive it. It wasn't just a picture, it was a system. This shift from unique objects to mass reproducible images is what truly laid the groundwork for modern photography. It's the reason we have photo albums, press photographs, postcards, and eventually, photo sharing apps on our phones. For me, understanding this difference wasn't just an academic detail. It changed how I thought about the images I create. Sometimes I'm after a singular tactile print that feels like a precious daguerreotype, a one-off piece. Other times, I embrace the calotype's spirit, art meant to be shared, circulated, and lived with. Both approaches still coexist in photography today. One treasures the object, the other celebrates the image's journey beyond itself. While the invention of photography was groundbreaking, it wasn't until the late 1800s that it truly became popular with the general public. The turning point came in 1888, when George Eastman introduced the Kodak camera. His slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest," summed up what made this moment revolutionary. Photography was no longer reserved for scientists, inventors, or wealthy patrons. It became something anyone could enjoy. Kodak's roll film simplified the process, eliminating the need to handle chemicals or master complex exposure techniques. For the first time, people could take their own photographs and send the film to Kodak for development and printing. This ease of use, combined with more affordable prices, allowed photography to enter homes across America and Europe. It turned photography into a popular hobby and passion for enthusiasts. Family portraits, travel snapshots, and personal photo albums became cultural staples. But if we ask when photography became a daily habit for everyone, the answer shifts. That moment came with the rise of digital photography. Starting in the 1990s, digital cameras removed the barriers of film and development. Suddenly, you could see your image instantly, delete what didn't work, and keep experimenting. For hobbyists and artists, it was a game changer. Then came smartphones, and with them, photography took on an entirely new dimension. No longer tied to the art or craft of image making, photography became a universal tool, a way to communicate, share, document, and express in real time. Cell phones untethered photography from being an event or a hobby. It became something we all do, constantly, without thinking about it. Today, photography is part of how we exist in the world, whether it's snapping a memory, making a joke, recording a moment of protest, or sharing a simple daily update. In that sense, photography's popularity depends on how you define it. Film photography brought it into galleries and homes. Digital cameras made it instant and accessible, but it was smartphones that made photography inseparable from everyday life. So, when was photography invented? The simple answer is 1839. But the real answer is, it's still being invented. If you made it to the end and liked this content, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel for more videos on art and photography. See you next time.